and so we're like zone out the world. And I told my parents, because I was in like high school mode, I was like, I really want you to wake me up tomorrow morning while we still have the car rented, and I want you to take me to Starbucks. So I was like, no matter what you do, wake me up and take me to Starbucks. And Starbucks was at the other beach that I wanted to stay at. Well, they forgot to wake me up, and they went to the beach, went for a beautiful walk, and as they tell us, they said that it was a really still and calm day, and they were coming back, and they were coming back to get us to go out to the beach because they thought it was going to be super hot because everything was so calm. And as they were coming up, the way that Phuket works is there's like a bay and then a hill and then a bay and then a hill. And so they came up and over the hill, and they were coming down into the bay, and they started seeing water everywhere. And they were like, what is this? Like, this is Thailand. I'm sure it's just like a huge pipe that broke and no one's dealt with it. And then they started coming down and started seeing like kind of rubble everywhere. And we're like, well, this is really bizarre. Like maybe a truck unloaded something and they were trying to come up with any idea. And they started getting further and further down, and they just realized that there was like water everywhere. And they're like, something's wrong. So they parked this car that we should not have had because we were supposed to return it, and came down and just started banging on my brother and I's door because they're realizing like there's something very, very wrong going on. And I remember waking up to the sound of them pounding and running out and then being like, we have to go upstairs, we have to go upstairs. So we ran upstairs to the top floor of the hotel, and so, I mean, for most of you, some of you might know, but you're probably pretty young at the time, but December 26, 2005 is when the Indian Ocean tsunami happened. And so that's what was going on, even though we didn't know it. And so we ran upstairs, and there were like people on like speakers in Thai yelling things that we couldn't understand. And just as we were up there, there's like, people think of a tsunami as a crashing wave. And really it's just a wall of water. And this whole wall of water just came and engulfed everything around us, but we were high enough up. And there were a lot of different things that went into keeping our family safe, but like the beach that we stayed at, instead of the one I wanted to stay at, they were like digging this super ugly moat that we had been complaining about all week because we're like, we have to walk across this moat to get to the beach, like major first world problems. And like it's such an eyesore. There's this huge lagoon next to us that's just totally polluted. And all of those things, when this wave hit, caused our beach to be the most protected. There was an island kind of out in the middle of the bay that actually cut the wave in half and caused it to be a few stories lower than it would have been. The room that my family was supposed to stay in was supposed to be in these bungalows that got completely submerged in water. But when we got there, they had the wrong booking, so we had to stay in this like kind of terrible room at the back of the hotel that my mom put up a huge fuss about. But as a result, we were some of the only rooms where like no water reached us. So there are all these factors that went in to like keeping us alive. And we're up at the top, and the water goes down, and I'm watching the time, and I don't have very much, so I'm going to try and do my best to summarize. But so we came down and started helping people who were injured, and they thought that another wave was coming, and so we got all of our stuff and drove up to the top of the island and just waited with all the people who had survived. And I don't think we really realized at the time that this was like one of the deadliest things that's ever happened in the world in terms of the number of people that were lost. Like 200,000 people died from this. And some of the people, including that, were our friends that we were supposed to see that day that my brother would have been with. And the crazy thing about that is that I just sat next to Nick and Matthew on the plane, and they had told me that they had just accepted Jesus. And they were some of the most amazing, amazing people ever. And they were just young, they were just in middle school. And I was really devastated by this whole thing, spending a week. We couldn't get off the island, so we spent a week in rubble, and just hearing the numbers go up and people looking for their children. And I just thought, how is it that I still have my family? And how is it that I'm alive despite having lived a life that I haven't really done anything good or deserving of this? And I think that's the gospel, is that none of us are deserving, but we're loved by God. And if we're given life, that we have to take that as a gift and a privilege, and that we don't know how many days we have, and we don't know when our time is going to come. And Zoe, the daughter in this family, she survived. She was floating out on the wave on one of those pool mattresses, and her brothers were on it with her, and they had both accepted Christ and knew that she hadn't, and they let her go. And then someone pulled her up out of a tree, so she's still alive, so that's pretty amazing. But that kind of rocked my family, and it especially rocked my decision on where I wanted to go to school, because all of a sudden things didn't seem like they were mine anymore. My story wasn't mine, my choices weren't mine, my days weren't mine, and I was really depressed and confused. And I spoke with my school counselor, and he actually wasn't my school counselor, but he was one of the counselors, and he was really amazing, and he was a Christian. And I was like, why am I alive? I don't understand why I didn't die. And I just kept asking, I don't get why I didn't die. And he was like, Mica, you need to change that question. You're asking why you're not dead, that you should be dead, and you need to be asking, for what reason are you alive? And that just totally changed my perspective. It's okay, living for God is actually living and saying every day, Lord, why did you give me this day? Why am I alive? And instead of seeing it as a negative of all these people died and I can't explain this thing that happened, which is still a very confusing thing when disaster strikes or sickness comes or things happen. And yet, for those of us who are still here, we have this amazing opportunity of this day that we've been given. And so there's a lot of other really crazy things that have happened in my life. I'm not going to have time to share those today, but that was a big turning point for me. And I ended up changing my mind about where I was going to go to college on the last day, because I was like, Lord, this is your story now. What are you doing? And on May 1st, I heard, go to St. Olaf, which was this college in Minnesota that I had never visited. And I went there, and my life has been transformed as a result of going there. And when I graduated from college and I had all of my friends and everything lined up and a job that I could have worked in Minnesota, I heard God saying, move to Seattle. And so I packed my car and I moved to Seattle. And 7 years later, I'm here. And I wanted to work in a public school in the city. And I work in Bellevue with you guys. And it is wonderful, and it is so different than what I would have picked. And so I guess what I wanted to share with you guys today is that God is doing something amazing in your life and with your story. And I hope and pray that you don't think that you need to live through a tsunami to have a valuable story. As I was driving this morning and praying about this, God gave this to me to share, and I just wrote this down. So I said, the waves that I face now are just as hard and just as confusing or even painful in different ways, except for that no one can see them. No one can see the rubble that I sometimes live in. No one knows that I'm having a hard week when I'm having a hard week, in the same way that that week back in December was hard. Whatever you guys are facing that's crashing into you, God is enough, and He is good, and He is faithful. And it's not too late for you to be who you want to be who you are made to be. I started that journey in high school, and I'm still on that today of setting aside the path that might feel easier and choosing the path of really wanting to be the person that God created me to be. There's a lot at stake, but it's totally worth it. And so, do we have time to sing, or is it pretty much... Yeah. So to end today, we're going to sing together. I thought it'd be cool if we sang this worship song. And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening.
Can everyone stand up, please? What? Go ahead and sing along if you want to.
Your love towers over me, gracious tempest in the sea. Your love is like a storm. Endless tide of mercy rain. Come and flood my heart again, surrounds me like an ocean. And your love is crashing over me, it's surging like a raging sea. Immerse me in the wonders of your love. Downpour of unending grace, consuming all my reckless ways. My sins submerged, your love has saved my soul. Crashing over me, it's surging like a raging sea. Immerse me in the wonders of your love. And the downpour of unending grace, consume me all my reckless ways. My sins submerged, your love has saved my soul. Your love is like a storm. Your love is like a storm. Your love is like a storm. Your love is like a storm.
Hey, if you're in a metal chair, if you'd put them on the lowest rung on the bottom rack. Otherwise, have a great 4-day weekend. Thank Jaci and Daniel and Miss Winskill.